Welcome to Barca News. It is October 8th, 2025, and John Laporta met with Al-Khelaifi and Fermin during the European Club Association meeting. And I'm going to tell you what that means. Also, we now know the asking price for the Mexican rising star Gilberto Mora. And finally, details of Etta Eyong's contract have been released, which could give us a hint on how much can Barcelona sign him for. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. This is the Barca News live podcast, where not only we discuss Barcelona news, but where I also get to interact with you lovely people in the chat section by reading your comments, answering your questions, and getting the discussion going. For those of you who will be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description, chapters in the timeline, in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. It's free. It helps the channel continue to grow. If you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys, merchandise, gear, whatever, just not just from Barca, but from any football team or any sports team around the world, you can go to Kickback, Fanatics, or Goal Kits. And finally, if you want to play sports bets on any sporting event, not just Barcelona matches, you can head to Bet Us. All links are in the description. You click on them, you get access to some pretty cool deals and offers, courtesy, of course, of Barca News. All right, having said all that, having gotten all of that out of the way, let's begin with the news. And as always, the first segment of news is multiple bits of news combined together for the sake of brevity. It's starting with the Super Cup, the Spanish Super Cup, the 2026 Spanish Super Cup, because the dates have been released. And it's as follows. January 7th, 2026, Barcelona will play the first semifinal against Athletic Club. And the following day, January 8th, is when Real Madrid will face against Atletico Madrid in the second semifinal. And of course, all matches will be played in Jeddah, or the capital of Saudi Arabia. So pretty much the same setup for this year. Barca Athletic Club. Other semifinal, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and then it ended up being Barca versus Real Madrid, with, of course, Barcelona humiliating Real Madrid 5-2. 5-2. 5-2. That's better. 5-2. So, of course, my question to you is, what do you think the predictions are going to be? Who's going to be in the final? Who's going to make it in the final? Is it going to be Barca Madrid again? Is it going to be maybe a surprise? Barca Atletico Madrid? Maybe Atletico Madrid. Let me know your prediction for who's going to be in the final. And if you dare, why not give me some score predictions as well. Now, let's move on to the next bit of news, because, ladies and gentlemen, it's been revealed the plan to bring back Lamine Yamal. Now, as you know, right now, Lamine Yamal is injured. He got injured during the first international break. He went to play with Spain. He played despite the injury. And, of course, that made it worse. He ended up missing, I think, 4 matches with Barcelona. He was finally declared fit. He played with PSG. And once again, he re-injured himself again. This is a back problem. And, well, now, Lamine Yamal has, of course, missed the second FIFA international break. He's currently working on a special plan, a special recovery plan, in order to bring him back into fitness. He's working out Monday through Friday at the Ciudad Esportiva. And this is the current goals for Lamine Yamal's recovery. Now, Barcelona would like to have Lamine Yamal declared fit by the Girona match. That's on October 18th. So that's in 10 days. That's when the FIFA international break is over. First match back is Girona, October 18th. So they're hoping that Lamine Yamal will be fit by then. But of course, as always, when you return from injury, you don't get to start. So the plan is to hopefully have him fit and play 30 minutes against Girona. So coming off the bench at the 60th minute, something around there. Then the following match after Girona is that midweek match in the Champions League against Olympiacos. The plan would be to have then Lamine Yamal play 60 minutes against Olympiacos. So most likely start and then come out at the 60th minute. And then finally, the following match by then would be El Clásico against Real Madrid. And the goal would be, of course, for Lamine Yamal to be 100% fit, max level, so he can start against Real Madrid and, of course, be able to play the full 90 minutes. So the goal still remains for Lamine Yamal to be 100% ready for a Clásico match with, again, hopefully getting 30 minutes against Girona, 60 against Olympiacos, and then the full 90, or being able to play the full 90 against Real Madrid. Now, that's the current goals right now, of course, but we'll see how the player progresses because, of course, it's all going to depend on how he feels. Now, speaking of injuries, let's move on to that next bit of news because, of course, we have two more injured players, including Raphinha and Fermin Lopez. And the goal is still for the two of them to come back against Girona. Fermin Lopez is looking highly likely that he will be declared fit for the Girona match. Again, October 18th. That's in 10 days. Raphinha, they're saying his recovery is taking a little bit longer, but that the goal is still Girona. So most likely we are going to see Fermin by Girona. Raphinha right now, a little bit of an asterisk right next to it. The goal is still Girona, but a little bit of an asterisk right next to Raphinha. But of course, I hope that he will come back by then, or at least if not by then, by Olympiacos, because we've all seen how much we've missed the energy, the intensity, the dedication of these two, Raphinha and Fermin Lopez. And of course, not to mention Gabi, but of course, Gabi will be out for 4 to 5 months due to that surgery that he recently had. All right, that is all the news for this first segment. Let's do some comments. And after that, we are going to talk about the meeting between Laporta and Al-Khelaifi and what it means, because it does have implications. This is not just a meeting like, oh, let's go eat croissants and whatever, coffee, something. David Blandon says, why are we even considering players like Etta Eyong? He isn't Barca quality. Interesting. Why do you think that? Please let me know. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on why do you think Etta Eyong is not Barca quality. Richard says, do you think we should go for a player like Vanderson who can play on either side and free up Koundé to play CB if needed? I don't think we should be prioritizing or considering signing a fullback because we have plenty, right? Right now, Barcelona have a very limited budget. They have very limited financial fair play. And as such, you have to prioritize who you can sign. Would it be ideal to sign 5, 6 players? Sure. Can we? Absolutely not. So since you can't, you have to really focus on the most urgent areas. What are those? Of course, center forward, because next summer, Lewandowski's gone. And center back, because Iñigo Martinez has left, and it looks like Christensen will be leaving too. So that's the two positions that we should be prioritizing. Should we be focusing on the fullback? No. We have Koundé, we have Eric Garcia that can play on the right. On the left, we have Valde, Gerard Martin, Jofre Torrens. We have plenty of options. Not to mention, next summer, Hector Fort. He could be coming back. So, there's plenty of options there. That's not an area that we should be focusing on, given Barcelona's limited finances and financial fair play. Nathan Fort says, hi Mo, if Barca are considering going for Nico Schlotterbeck, they should also go for Joel Ordóñez from Club Bruges to replace Araujo and Christensen if that is possible. As far as I know, Barcelona are only looking for one signing as for the center back positions. They're not looking for more. The list is long. There's a lot of players they're considering. We'll see how it plays out during the summer. Dorian says, I really hope we have Fermin back for the game against Girona. My Dani Olmo is testing my patience. 60 million, by the way. All thanks, Deco Masterclass. Yeah, Deco, man. Bravo. First 60-something on Vitor Roque, then 60 mil on Olmo. Good job, Deco. Good job. But yes, I hope Fermin is back as well. Del Davis says, hey Mo, hope all is well. Thanks for keeping updated all the time. Thank you, my friend, for watching. Axel says, Gilberto Mora fits spectacular in Barca's system. I hope we can get him come winter/summer time. I'll talk about Gilberto Mora in a little bit. Don't worry. But yes, he is looking very promising. And finally, Mike Valencia, who says, what's up, Mo? Hopefully this Mexican talent can come to Barca. Being Mexican myself, I love the history Barca has with players such as Rafa Marquez. Yes, absolutely. El Kaiser. Rafa Marquez, man. Rafa, what a player. Both for the Mexican national team and for Barca. What a player. All right, let's get back to the news and then we'll do more comments. But let's talk about the meeting that Jan Laporta had with Al-Khelaifi and Seferin, Alexander Seferin, the UEFA president. Now, this meeting was held at the European Club Association. From the name, you can pretty much figure out what it is. It's the Association of European Clubs, right? The European Club Association, or ECA, as it's known by its initials. The ECA, which PSG are, of course, a member of, and which Al-Khelaifi, who is the president of PSG, is also, if I'm not mistaken, the president of ECA. But this association of European clubs is very close to UEFA. In fact, the two of them work together to come up with the new Champions League format that's currently being played. And they also came up with a new format for how to divide up the money, where now not only we have a new format on how to play the championship, now clubs are making more money from the Champions League, something that, well, a lot of clubs were complaining about. So this was in direct response to those demands. Now, the ECA, again, headed by Al-Khelaifi, who's the president of PSG, very close ally of the Champions League, of UEFA, and the ECA held a general assembly where Jan Laporta, as you can see in a picture, attended alongside Rafa Yuste. Barcelona are not a member of the ECA, but nonetheless, Laporta was there at that general assembly with Rafa Yuste, and Al-Khelaifi was seen welcoming Jan Laporta personally, which, of course, this is a big indication of the improved relationships between Barcelona and PSG. Another sign of that is that, well, we saw Al-Khelaifi right next to Jan Laporta. Well, Seferin was in between him, if I'm not mistaken. But Al-Khelaifi was there at the stadium during the Barcelona-PSG match, and they were seen hugging and laughing and blah, blah, blah. So there's definitely been improved relationship between both clubs, and, well, Laporta now attending the ECA General Assembly. Now, what does this mean? And why do we care that Jan Laporta is at the ECA meeting and that he's making out with Al-Khelaifi? Because this picture looks like they're about to start making out. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that Jan Laporta is bringing Barcelona one step closer to leaving the Super League. Now, you guys might remember the Super League, I'm sure. I've talked about it a lot. Super League was a breakaway league because many of these European clubs were sick and tired of UEFA. And UEFA did whatever the hell they wanted. They never responded to the club's requests or demands. So 12 clubs got together. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico de Madrid, Juventus, AC Milan, Inter Milan, and the top six from the Premier League, or the big six from the Premier League. They all got together and they started the Super League, which was supposed to be those 12 founding clubs, plus 8 others that would get invited. So that's 20, and it would play kind of like a normal league, right? Just like La Liga, you have 20 teams, you play against everybody twice. Same thing it would have been. Those 12 founding clubs plus 8 other invited ones, and you would play against everybody twice. So it'd kind of be like a weekly Champions League every week for the entire season, where you would play against Bayern twice and against Real Madrid twice and against, Liverpool. It would be pretty excited. So this was the breakaway league as a protest to UEFA. Of course, once the Super League was announced, UEFA immediately announced that they would sanction those founding clubs, including banning them from the Champions League. So most of the clubs immediately dropped out. Only Barca, Real Madrid, and Juventus were left in the project, and eventually Juventus left as well. So now it's only Barcelona and Real Madrid who are still forming part of that Super League. Now, in response to this breakaway league, UEFA actually reacted, which is good. How did they react? They became more responsive to the club's demands, to the club's needs. They came up with a new format that we are currently using. They came up with a new redistribution of TV rights and profits, etc., and awards. So that was also beneficial for the clubs because now they were making more money. And that weakened the Super League even further. Okay? Now, it's been rumored that Laporta is now considering leaving the Super League, which would leave Florentino Perez by himself, and joining instead the ECA. And while this is another sign of that, right? We saw Seferin going to the Olympic Stadium for the first time since 2021 or 2022. We saw Laporta very close with Al-Khelaifi, even though the relationship between Barca and PSG have not been good in the recent years. And now, Laporta attending the ECA General Assembly, where he was personally welcomed by Al-Khelaifi and where Fermin was also present. So all this indicates that Barcelona are starting to move away from the Super League and instead, become not remaining in UEFA because they are in UEFA, but maybe joining the ECA and abandoning the whole Super League project, leaving Real Madrid by themselves. And this I do applaud. Why? I was originally actually in favor of the Super League because just like the clubs, I was tired of UEFA just doing whatever the hell they wanted and nobody could stop them because there's nothing you could do. So I was like, yes, let's do separate league. That's awesome. Screw UEFA. But since UEFA have been responsive to the clubs, they've changed the format, they've changed how they redistribute the money, and given how Florentino Perez has acted towards Barcelona with the whole Negreira case and joining Negreira as a club and all these statements and everything they've been doing to throw dirt at Barcelona, then honestly, I applaud this because even though I was in favor of the Super League, we should not be involved in any project like that with Florentino Perez if that's how Florentino Perez treats us. So Florentino Perez, you wanna, bash Barcelona, throw dirt at us, accuse us of bribing referees and blah, 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 and that the only reason you lost is because of that, then you know what? F you. You can stay in that project by yourself. We'll go somewhere else. So I do applaud this move. But of course, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. What do you think about Barcelona inching closer to abandoning the Super League? Let me know in the chat section if you're here. And if not, if you're watching this when it's over, let me know in the comment section. All right, let's get back to the comments. Speaking of the comments or speaking of the chat, Edward says, hi, Mo, are you never the dude Ire over last lost? Barca never play well in the daytime. Further, have you ever seen Gueye make diagonal passes from the back line to the front? I don't think I understand the first sentence. Mo, are you over the Deud Irai? Who's that? Over last lost? I'm not sure I understood your first sentence. But, if you want to clarify down below, please let me know what you were talking about. And I would happily read it again. Valerian says, Alemani, please sign Deco to Atletico Madrid. Yeah. Can you imagine? First thing Alemani does, we're signing Deco. And then when Deco joins Atletico Madrid, Alemani's like, all right, bye. He quits and rejoins Barcelona. Because what Alemani and Jordi Cruyff were able to do when Barcelona are still bad financially, but they were much, much worse when Alemani and Cruyff were here or at the club. And our financial fair play is still terrible, but it was way worse when they were at the club. And despite that, they were able to do so much with so little, not to mention, we still had all those big contracts and they helped get rid of them. But anyways, they did such great work with so much great work with so little. Can you imagine what Alemani would be able to do now with Flick? Or now with the club's finances a little bit better? Or now with our financial fair play a little bit better? Yes, we're not under the 1-1 rule. But when Alemani was at the club, we were under the 1-4 rule. That means that for every 4 euros that the club would make, would only be able to use one out of those 4 euros to sign. That's incredibly low. That's like selling a player for 100 million, and then you're like, oh, you can only use 25 to sign someone new. That's insane. Man, I miss Alemani. Heather says, I know you dislike Araujo. I don't hate or dislike Araujo. I just think he doesn't fit the system. But they switched Kunde out against Real Madrid. Vinny at right back. Araujo always keeps Vinny in his hip pocket. He did when he played there. But I have to say, I don't remember Kunde struggling against Vinicius. So it's not like we have to, oh, he's struggling so bad, we should put Araujo there. But I don't dislike or hate Araujo. He's just shown us that he's not fitting under Flick's system. And just because a player is not performing well doesn't mean I hate him. I don't hate any of these players. I don't know any of these players personally. I don't know what they're like as people. I just know them as a player. And if I say, hey, this player is not doing well, it's because I think they're not performing. It's not because I have something against them. But anyways, Axel says, in my opinion, once UEFA introduced a new format, the Super League died immediately. I would go further, say it was never going to happen since so many teams pulled out. Yeah, I think UEFA were smart in responding to this breakaway league, right? Because UEFA, for the longest time, they were like, F you, we're going to do whatever the hell you want. Oh, what are you going to do about it? Oh, nothing, right? But then Super League pops up and they're like, oh, shit, I guess they can do something about it, right? And technically, once all these clubs pulled out, UEFA could have still said, well, F you, what are you going to do about it, right? But they were smarter than that. And instead, they were like, all right, well, we got to combat this and we got to be more responsive to these clubs' demands because they're obviously not happy. And that's why they left us to begin with. And they came up with a new format. They came up with a new, the redistribution of money. And that was smart because, sure, the clubs pulled out, but the only reason all those clubs pulled out is because UEFA threatened to kick them out of the Champions League. But then, remember, A22, the company that is in charge of the Super League, they went to court and they won. And the court said UEFA does not have a monopoly on football. And that UEFA cannot punish teams for wanting to join the Super League. So right there, after that court decision, those clubs that left could have easily returned to the Super League and said, okay, well, now you can't punish us, so we're going back. But they didn't because why? By then, UEFA had responded to their demands, reformatted the competition, reformatted the distribution of money, so then there was no need to go back, even though they could have. So that was the smart thing that UEFA did, is respond versus digging their heels in, kind of like what Tebas does or the CTA or all these refs. Oh, we made a mistake. Oh, no, there's no mistake here. You guys are the idiots. We didn't do anything wrong, right? They dig their heels deeper instead of saying, no, we do have a problem with reffing. Referees are beyond mediocre. Let's figure out what's wrong. Let's fix it. No, they dig their heels in and say, no, F you. Our refereeing is amazing. You're the idiot. Right? UEFA didn't do that. They didn't do that. So Tebas, CTA, Royal Spanish Football Federation, Luis de la Fuente, maybe you guys can learn something. I never thought I would say that, by the way, in my life, that I would use UEFA as a lesson, as a good lesson. I never thought I would say that, but sometimes I guess people can surprise you. Anyways, let's get back to the news and then we'll do more comments. But let's talk about a rising star out here in the Western Hemisphere who's no other than Gilberto Mora, someone that a lot of you have mentioned to me before. I know there's a lot of fans in the channel here of Gilberto Mora. We talked about him in the last video as well. But if you don't know who Gilberto Mora is, he's a 16-year-old attacking midfielder, currently plays at Club Tijuana or Cholos de Tijuana. And he's been making a lot of waves. He's only 16 years old and he's already making a lot of waves. He's attracted a lot of attention in Europe because he looks an incredibly promising player. Great dribbling ability. He's like a number 10. Let's put it that way. Great dribbling ability. Great link up with his teammates. Great passing. Great vision. Very high football IQ. Very promising youngster coming out of Mexico. And the last time we talked about him in the video, I said, of course, Barcelona are actually tracking Gilberto Mora. They're interested in Gilberto Mora. They've been watching him for quite some time, in fact. And Barcelona scouts have produced a lot of positive reports about Gilberto Mora and how he could be a good addition to Barcelona. Now, the good thing is that the representative of Gilberto Mora is no other than Rafaela Pimienta. If you don't know who Rafaela Pimienta is, she is the daughter of the late Mina Raiola. I don't know if you guys remember Mina Raiola. We used to talk a lot about him here in the channel. Mina Raiola was one of the biggest football agents in the world, kind of like maybe even bigger than Jorge Mendes, but he passed away. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but he passed away and he left and his daughter is now in charge of his empire, agency empire, footballing empire, whatever the hell you want to call it. But Rafaela Pimienta is the agent of Gilberto Mora. And why is that relevant? Because she's a very close friend of Jean Laporta. And of course, it's always much easier to work with agents that are your close friends versus just a stranger that you have a professional relationship with. Now, the news is that we now know what the asking price is for Gilberto Mora. And Club Tijuana, Los Cholos de Tijuana, are asking for 20 million euros. That's the asking price for Gilberto Mora. And of course, the question is, would you sign him for 20 million euros? Now, 20 million euros is affordable for Barcelona. You know, if they was 60 or something above, obviously no way, no matter how good he is. But 20 million euros is affordable. It's something Barcelona could technically pay. But of course, the question is, should they? Right? 20 million, honestly, for one of the most promising players currently in the Americas, I think that's pretty low. And I say that because remember, if Gilberto Mora his name was Gilberto Morinha or some fucking Brazilian name, whichever Brazilian club he plays for, it would be asking for 60 million, right? Vitor Roque, waste of money. Endrick, waste of money. Mastantuono, he's Argentinian, another 60 mil. We'll see if he's a waste of money too. But, you know, if this guy was Argentinian or Brazilian, you bet your ass they're going to be asking for 60 mil. 20, I say that's a good price. Now, it's still a risk, of course, because he's only 16 years old, and you don't know how he's going to end up developing. But 20 million for a very promising player, again, if this guy was Brazilian, this guy was Gilberto Morinha or Argentinian, he would cost way more than that. But of course, I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this when it ends. And let's get back to the comment section. And then we are going to talk about the price of Etta Eyong, because we also know his price. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Harsh says, finances is all Barca needs to focus first. I wish Ter Stegen, Araujo, Iñaki, even Lewa should just go if they have any love for Barca's success and know there's still limitations just like Iñigo. Well, Lewa's contract is up, so there's not much to leave. It's not like he's up in the summer. It's not like he has a 5-year contract and, you know, he better leave before it ends. He's got to leave regardless. The contract is over. Iñaki, it wasn't a matter of that he didn't want to leave. Iñaki straight up said, okay, like if you guys don't want me, that's fine. I'll look for another club and I'll leave. What happened was that Barcelona decided that a loan would be better because they know how that he's capable and they know what he's capable of. So they wanted to loan him out so he can improve his stock, increase his stock, right? Play a full season, perform hopefully great. His value would go up, and then next summer, they could sell him for more. Because this past summer, Iñaki Peña's stock had gone down because he hadn't played, right? He only played the first half of the season, then Tech took over. So it's not that Iñaki didn't want to leave. Iñaki said, okay, I'll leave. But Barcelona said, let's try a loan and see if that can increase your price. But yeah, they're saying Araujo, they are going to have to step aside. I'll doubt Araujo will because they just renewed him till 2031. Ter Stegen, there's a better chance that Ter Stegen leaves. I wish he wouldn't have gotten injured because I feel like had Ter Stegen not gotten injured during the summer and he would be training right now, and I think if he would have saw that, okay, Joan Garcia is better than me, I think in the winter he would have decided to leave. I feel like that's what Ter Stegen wants to see. I have a feeling that Ter Stegen wants to try to see if he can still compete And if he can't, I think he will leave. But because of the injury, he's not going to be back until January, which means if he wants to compete with Juan, he's going to have to spend the second half of the season competing with him. And then if he notices that, okay, I can't compete with Juan, then I'll leave in the summer. Versus had he competed during this first half of the season, he could have left in the winter, right? That's what I have the feeling with Juan Garcia, Ter Stegen. Kind of like what happened with Jordi Alba, right? Jordi Alba was told in the summer that, hey, you're done. And he was like, no, I'm not leaving. And he spent, I think it was half of the season or maybe 3/4 of the season on the bench. And then he realized, okay, yeah, no, I can't compete. This Balde guy, it's just a motorcycle. And then he decided to leave on his own. But we'll see. We'll see. Mike says, I checked the prices on the game Barca versus Villarreal, and man, including hotel and plane, it would cost $1,200 per person coming from Houston, Texas. Yeah, man, this is why when people were saying, oh, are you going to go watch? And I said, absolutely not, because I'm not a big fan of Miami. But regardless, I'm like, it would be cheaper to go to Barcelona and watch a match in Barcelona because I knew the prices were going to be through the roof. I mean, we're talking about the U.S. Greed here abounds, right? Everybody wants to charge an arm and a leg for anything. And, I knew the prices would be so high, and I'm like, you're better off. $1,200, bro, you could fly to Barcelona, and watch a match there. Street Fighter says, Mo, do you like the new format over the old? Yes, I do. Because it's it gives you a lot more variety, right? You're playing 8 matches, and they're all different opponents. Versus before in the group stages, it was just 3 people, 3 teams, and that was it. Now you're playing against 8. I mean, that's pretty cool. And I think that's, I mean, obviously now we see some weaker teams that maybe they shouldn't be there, but overall it gives you more football. Obviously it sucks that players have to play now 2 extra matches, maybe 4 if you end up going to the playoffs. Is that what they're called? The wild card? But I do like it. Axel says, out of all the teams, I think Gilberto Mora will get the most minutes at Barca. Yeah. Now, don't forget, guys, he is 16 years old, right? So if we do sign him, he's not coming until 2 more years, until he's 18. Let me see when his birthday is. Gilberto Mora. When is his birthday? October 14th. Oh, okay. So he's going to be 17 in 6 days. So that's good. So that means if we sign him, he would come in a year, not 2, in a year. Because he's currently 16, but he will be 17 in 6 days. And then, of course, he can't come to Barca until he's actually 18. So if we sign him, he would come in a year. Now, since his birthday is October, we could technically sign him next summer. But he wouldn't be able to join us until the winter transfer market, which will be winter 2027. Does that make sense? But yeah, don't think that Gilberto Mora is coming this winter or next summer. He has to be 18. Because if you're from the outside of the EU, you have to be 18 to sign with a European club. And that's because it's a rule they implemented to prevent trafficking of children. FIFA implemented that in 2008 or something. Someone was asking, it was like, well, how if that rule exists, how did Barcelona sign Messi when he was... That's before the rule was implemented. Anyways, let's get back to the news, and then we'll do more comments. But let's do the last bit of news, because we do have to talk about another player and his price. And this player, it's no other than Etta Eyong, someone we've talked about in this channel, someone we talked about a lot during the summer. Etta Eyong, 21-year-old, center forward, originally from Cameroon. He was playing, he came up through the Cadiz Academy and then signed for Villarreal. Last season, he was showing some promise. So Barcelona decided to make a move for Etta Eyong during the summer, during the last days of the summer transfer market. But Etta Eyong instead ended up joining Levante. And they're saying this was all plan of Villarreal so they can make more money. Because since Etta Eyong came up through the Cadiz Academy, when Cadiz transferred to Villarreal, they retained a percentage of his rights. So had Villarreal sold them to a big club like Barcelona this summer, let's say for 20, 30 million, whatever, Cadiz would have gotten a big chunk of that. So instead, they're saying they arranged the sale to Levante for 3 million only. Kind of like, hey, we sell him to you. Now Cadiz no longer has rights on him, right? They get their chunk and they're out. A small chunk of 30 mil, of 3 mil, I'm sorry. And then Levante gets a good player for a season and then sell him back to Villarreal, I'm sure for a little higher. So Levante makes their money. They get a good player for a whole season. And then when Villarreal gets them back, then they can sell them for a big price. And this time, Cadiz is not there to take a big chunk of that. That's what they're saying the deal was. And that's how Etta Eyong ended up in Levante. Now, so far, Etta Eyong has had a really good start to the season. He has scored 5 goals and provided 3 assists in 8 matches. So that's 1 goal contribution per match. It's a pretty good rate. And Barcelona are still tracking him and are still interested in him. Why? Because, of course, in the summer, Lewandowski will be gone. But Barcelona are monitoring the market for possible center forward signings, and Etta Eyong is on the list. He's not the only player on the list, but he is on the list. So, how much can Barcelona, or how much will Barcelona have to pay if they want to sign Etta Eyong in the summer? Now, Etta Eyong has a very complicated contract with Levante. Or I should say, Villarreal and Levante have a very complicated contract in regards to the transfer of Etta Eyong. And it goes like this. And you might want to write this down because it's pretty convoluted. I had to write it down, so I'm going to put my glasses on and I'm going to read it to you because it's quite a mouthful. All right, so Villarreal sold Etta Eyong to Levante for 3 million. Now, in this contract, it's stipulated that if Levante sell Etta Eyong next summer for 3 million to 7.5 million, anything in between that, they sell him for 3 mil, 4 mil, 5, 6, between 3 and 7.5 million. If Levante sell Etta Eyong between 3 to 7.5 million euros, Villarreal would get 80% of that sale, and Levante would get 20%. Okay? If Levante sell Etta Eyong between 7.5 to 15 million euros, then Villarreal and Levante would split that 50-50. Okay? So if he sold for 15 million, Levante gets 7.5, Villarreal gets 7.5. If Levante sell Etta Eyong for more than 15 million euros, Levante keeps 80% of the transfer fee, with Villarreal getting 20%. Okay? Now, here's the kicker. Yes, I know. This is very, very interesting stuff. For me as a lawyer, it's super interesting. If Levante get an offer from any club worth 15 million or more, and they reject that offer, then Levante would have to pay Villarreal the profit that sale would have generated. Okay? Now, to simplify this a little bit, use round numbers. We said that if Levante sell the player for more than 15 million, they would get 80%. And Villarreal would get 20, right? So, if they reject an offer of 15 or north, they would have to pay Villarreal what they would have made off that transfer. And how much would Villarreal get? 20%, right? So let's say Levante get a 20 million euro offer for Etta Eyong and they reject it. If they reject it, they would have to pay Villarreal the money they would have made off that sale. How much is that? 20% of 20 million, which would be 5 million. 4 million, sorry. 4 million. So if Levante get that offer and reject it, they just reject it, and player's not sold, they have to pay that money out of their own pocket to Levante. Sorry, to Villarreal. So what does that mean for Barca? All these convoluted numbers that I just gave you. It means that if Barcelona make a 15 million euro offer for Etta Eyong, Levante are not going to be able to reject it, because if they do, they're going to have to pay 20% of that offer to Villarreal. So they're not going to want to reject it, and they're going to be forced to sell him for 15 million euros. Even though the player has a 30 million euro release clause. Okay? The player has a 30 million euro release clause, but all Barcelona have to do is offer 15, and Levante are not going to be able to reject that, because if they do, they have to pay Villarreal 20% of those 15 million euros, which will be 3 million. Levante would have to pay 3 million out of their own pocket to Villarreal. So, how much can Barcelona sign Etta Eyong for? 15 million euros. Of course, assuming that Barcelona and another club also make that offer, and then the player says, I want to go to that other club. Anyways, but I know that was a lot of numbers. That was a lot of explanation, but Gilberto Mora, 20 mil. Etta Eyong, 30 mil release clause. But given this convoluted contract, Barcelona could technically sign him for 15. And of course, the same way I asked about Gilberto Mora, I'll ask you. Would you sign Etta Eyong for 15 million euros? Let me know in the comment section or in the chat section if you're watching this as we speak. All right, let's do the comments. That's all the news for the podcast. So let's do some comments, then we'll end this. And then, of course, after this, there will be a news video, because there always is a news video, because there's so much news. But that's okay, because I enjoy it. All right, let's see. Where did we leave off? John says, hey, Mo, I think Flick should give Christensen more game time. I don't know why he's always on the bench, and try Pedri in the attacking midfield. Gotta smash the like button and stop moving like Dani Olmo. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Yes, hit that like button. Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't try Christensen too much. I don't know. Maybe Flick sees that Eric Garcia and Cubarsí are a better option than Christensen and Cubarsí. That, of course, doesn't mean that Christensen is a bad option. You know, just because someone is better doesn't mean that you're bad. But I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why he doesn't. Rogelio says, seen him play live a couple of times in Tijuana. Mora is a great talent. Love how he crosses the ball. I like that. I like hearing that. Axel says, 20 million is insanely cheap for this talent. I think it's a bargain. Also, considering he will 100% play in the 2026 World Cup, his price is going to shoot up so high. Might be in the 50 to 70 million. Yeah, definitely something you want to sign right now. Of course, you can sign him right now and then just wait for him until he turns 18 to come to the club. So yeah, if it really is, if the reports are true of Barcelona's scouts that Mora is like this incredible talent, then yeah, I think Barcelona should jump on the deal, because yeah, his price is only gonna keep going up. And you know, again, 20 million for someone that promising. If he was Brazilian or Argentinian, you bet your ass I'd be asking for 60. Axel says, seen him play. He plays very similarly to Iniesta/Pedri. He's spectacular. I like that. Amber says, nice work, bro. Thank you. And Rogelio says, Florida man better not show up to the game and do something crazy. Yeah. Street Fighter says, Juan Garcia registration is still temporary. Am I right, Mo? Yes, it is. Juan Garcia is registered in the place of Mark Ter Stegen, because he's injured. And ironically, now Juan Garcia is too. So, in January, or December 31st, I should say, Juan Garcia's registration will expire, just like Dani Olmo and Pau Victor's were. Because remember, Dani Olmo and Pau Victor were registered in the place of Christensen, because Christensen was injured last season. And that expired December 31st. Christensen was re-registered automatically. He got his registration back. And Dani Olmo and Pau Victor were left without a registration. So, yes. Same situation. Let's hope it's not the same result, and we see Juan Garcia have to start the second half of the season without a registration, like we saw with Dani Olmo and Pau Victor. Because again, this club, this board, they love to improvise. Jeremiah says, I'll look at the ticket up. I might probably go see him in games since I'm in California. Oh, yeah, you're very close to, well, depending, I guess. If you're SoCal, yeah, you're just, depending where you are, you're a couple hour drive, maybe even less. But yeah, if you're North Cal, a little bit more, a little bit further. Valerian Pereira says, Mora is a Madrid fan. Here's the thing about these youngsters. They might be a fan of this club or a fan of that club. At the end of the day, they end up being a fan of the Czech. Rodrigo Goes, right? All his life growing up, he was a Barca fan, and he had the Barca kids, and look where he is. We could say all we want about these. Oh, he grew up a Barca fan, or he grew up. At the end of the day, whichever club pays more money, that's who they end up going to, right? Or whichever club offers them a better project. That's the reality of it. Unless you're an actual academy player of a certain club, everything else really doesn't really matter. Like, do you think Lewandowski is a hardcore culé? Of course not. He came because we paid him good money. Do you think Araujo's a hardcore culé? No, absolutely not. Raphinha loves the club, but do you think I'm sure he has a childhood club from Brazil. Like, all these players, at the end of the day, they just go wherever they pay them the most or whatever they're going to be more successful. Unless you're a product of that academy, of that club, you're still going to go wherever they pay you the most. Java the Hut says, De La Fuente is a Real Madrid fan. Dean Huijsen got injured and was sent home. Lamine reports injured and still played. Edward Hamilton says, Mo, the writer Marcus said, he Mexicans descended from the Aztec, the Argentinians descended from boats, two mass Italian migrations, 1858 and 1916. Entre nos, Argentine girls are blessed among women. I'm not sure how that's related, but thank you. Street Fighter says, el director deportivo del Villarreal está haciendo un mejor trabajo que Deco. Well, so Street Fighter says that the sporting director of Villarreal is doing a better job than Deco. But, I mean, my dog, who's currently napping behind me, is doing a better job than Deco. Poor Deco. We really bag on him a lot. He's done some good stuff. I don't want to just make it seem like he's the worst ever, but he's definitely not great at his job. But he's done some good stuff. Let's give him some credit. Valerian says, have you read Frankie comments on Miami La Liga match? I have not, actually. I have not. And King City FX says, I live in Orlando. Can't let that Barca game miss me. Yeah, you're really close, man. You can take the train, right? They have that train between Miami or you can drive. You should check it out. I'm actually going to be in Miami this weekend. I'm going there for work, but not work. Does that make sense? My boss is flying me there. We're going to go watch the Argentina versus Venezuela match. So that's going to be fun. So that's why I say it's work, but it's not work. It's work because it's my boss inviting me, but I'm not going there to work. Does that make sense? But maybe I'll do like a little... Maybe I should. Maybe I'll do a little... a video of the stadium, going to the stadium, the match, etc. Let me know if you guys would like to see that. I did that, when I went to Barca, like the Barca Museum and all that. So let me know. Mike Valencia says, why does race matter when clubs evaluate players' value? For example, like you said, Brazilians are 40, 60 million. Argentinians are the same compared to Gilberto. It has to do with just the market, right? Because Brazil is known for producing so much good talent that it becomes like a brand, right? It's marketing. And if they produce some of the best players in history, so every player that comes out of there, you're like, oh, is he going to be the next Pelé? So clubs are willing to spend money because, since it's like a brand, kind of like, Ferrari, right? Ferrari used to make amazing cars. And as such, they gained that fame or that, I'm blanking on the word, but they got that reputation of making great cars. So it doesn't matter what they make. As long as they slap their logo on it, people are going to pay. Because, in fact, Ferrari cars in the last, I want to say, decade or two have been shit. But people still pay hundreds of thousands and even millions for it. Why? Because for the longest time, Ferrari made some of the best cars in the world. So now, despite them making garbage, people still pay a lot of money for it because they gained that reputation. So it's the same thing with Brazil and Argentina, right? They've produced such great talent. I mean, Diego Maradona, Messi, Pelé, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo. I mean, you name it. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So those two countries have produced so much great talent that every time a player comes out of there, clubs are willing to pay a lot of money because they have that reputation that their players are great players. So it's kind of like that, you know. Hamad Omar says, hey, Mo, have you checked the World Cup ticket prices? I have not, and I don't even want to because I know they're going to be super expensive. So why even bother? King City FX, yes, do it. All right, I'll do it. And Jep Tega says, Sir Mo, you're doing a blessed update, so we do need this info. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for watching and for your comment. And Mike says, so the ratio of talent produced because Mexico rarely produces great talent. It's not that Mexico doesn't produce great talent. Of course, Mexico has also produced great talent. You know, Hugo Sanchez, even though he's a Madridista, and you know, even Cuauhtémoc, even though I do think Cuauhtémoc is a little bit overrated, or what's his name? Rafa Marquez, of course. But obviously not at the same rate as Brazil or Argentina, right? So that's why. Street Fighter says only 15 mil. Is it why only 15 mil? Are you talking about Etta Eyong? Or what are we talking about? 15 mil. Because if it is about Etta Eyong, I explained it. It's very long. I don't want to go over it again. So just watch it when it's over. But Edward says, hit the like button. Yes, guys, please. It's free. It really helps the channel. And Muhammad Omar says, thank you so much on what you do, Mo. No, thank you, my friend, for watching. And on that note, let's end the podcast. And after this, I will be posting another news video because there's more things I need to cover. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. I will see you guys in the next video. And as always, Biscarsa.